In the last video, I asked a question. How could the Baptist, I'm talking about John 3:23, John 3 and then the beginning of John 4, the book of John, where the disciples are dipping people in the disciples of Jesus are dipping people in water, like John the Baptist. So I in the last video I asked the question, how can what the disciples of Jesus were doing be the same thing the Baptists were doing when Jesus was standing there, even though he didn't dip anybody in water? Jesus was alive. So how could it be the same thing when Jesus was alive? Jesus hadn't gone to the cross yet. How could the Baptists be doing the same thing the disciples were doing? But today I want to ask another question. And that is, where did this baptism, this dipping in water, come from? The Baptists never talk about it. No one ever talks about it. But just think about it. Where did it come from? If you go into the Old Testament, there's no water dipping. There's no water dipping ritual like this. There is none. There's washing by priest in the glassy sea, or they were sacrificing animals. There's a lot of blood around. They were washing. They weren't, and it was for priest. They weren't doing a water dipping ritual like this. So you got to ask, where did this come from? Where did this come from? Well, it had to be between Malachi and Matthew in that 400 years. Well, what happened then? The Jews were in captivity in Babylon. Well, that's when the synagogues started. That's when rabbis started. That's when Pharisees started. It was in Babylon in that time period. So in that 400 and something years, whatever time, roughly 400 years, it came along from who? The Pharisees were doing it. So where did it come from? It had to come from the Pharisees. It was a Pharisee baptism. Well, why would it? Well, then here's another question. I won't wait for the next video. Why was, if it's a Pharisee baptism, what was John the Baptist doing it? And why did Jesus participate in it? I think I know the answers. But maybe some Baptists can come over here and give some insight. So why? What or where? Where did it come from? Where did this water dipping come from? Who made that up?